Jake in the house. I'm James Brown, and this is Living with Pride. And let me tell you, when you live with pride, you got to know the people who's passing the pride around. And I've got Senator Jacob Anderegg in the house. And his house is your house. And I'm going to let him explain that. It's District 13. Now, you think about Friday the 13th. Well, District 13 is a cool thing. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. It is October, so,
It's
the Friday the 13th might be coming up.
Well, my birthday is October the 14th.
Oh, there you go.
I'll be 32.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Again?
Hey, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you coming to participate. We had a chance to meet at the Rocky Mountain Reinvestment Corporation's function. I guess it's 20 years or 25 years
I believe
of
so.
existing, and they're doing all kinds of wonderful things. But I know you've got some critical issues. You're on a number of committees.
Yes, sir.
You are fighting for housing. You're fighting for. You tell us what you're doing.
Well, I'm up to my eyeballs in alligators. Actually, I'm the co-chair of the Affordable Housing Commission, the Utah State Affordable Housing Commission. I'm the co-chair of the Executive Offices and Criminal Justice Appropriations Subcommittee, which funds all of the state's efforts for homelessness.
Right.
And the new resource centers that we have set up. I'm dealing with. I'm kind of on the front lines of what's happening in affordable housing and homeless. Dealing with the homeless issue as well as transitional housing, permanent assistant housing.
A lot of people don't understand all of that is integrated.
Oh, yeah.
They don't understand.
It dovetails just like this.
They try to go homeless over here, aging over here, but when you're old, sometimes you run out of money, sometimes you run out of the ability to have a wonderful place to stay, and it all is impacted under the same umbrella.
Absolutely. I think the single biggest issue that we're finding is, when you're talking about what we term the area median income. You can be at 100%, 50%, 80%. You get down to about 30% of the area median income. You're usually one event away from being homeless.
Exactly.
And so, it's not discriminatory towards age at all.
Right.
Most of our aging population that are below basically 65% of area median income.
Right.
Are struggling to find housing, not only housing that they can afford, but then housing that also works for their age.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's got to be people, they have to have facilities that they can access, get in and out, and you can't always do the 5, 6, 7 stories high-rise apartments. It just doesn't usually work.
No.
It doesn't work.
And I think that the culture is going to have to come to a point where when we build these kinds of high-rise establishments, we're going to have to build working environments in them so that people who live in them can go downstairs and go to work.
That's for sure.
And I think that that's the future. It's funny, Utah has got this impression of being this intricately unique community.
Sure.
And I say, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. Utah's no different than anywhere else. We face the same kinds of problems, but we are attacking housing and homelessness uniquely different than a number of other places around the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's happening up on the Hill?
It was interesting because as I delved into this about a year ago when I was made the chair of the commission, I one of the first things right off the very top, the very biggest issue that we're facing is this problem with NIMBYism. Okay. Not in my backyard. So, hey, I'd talk to all these mayors, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's a serious issue, but let's do it over there."
Right.
We don't want it here. We don't want the density.
They're worried about the tax base.
Well, not only the tax base, but density, which has the stigma of, you're going to bring in the projects, the slums, and that's just simply not the case.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't care where you are, who you are, you're always going to have that element of, drugs here and there. But when you're talking about what we're trying to do as a state, when we passed Senate Bill 34 last year, what we really did is we tied effective planning for density, for affordable housing, to the Transportation Infrastructure Fund money, which is about $750 million a year.
That's a pretty cool situation.
And so if you don't take the effective steps that you need to as a city, fine, we're not going to make you.
Right.
But if you don't, you're no longer eligible for that capital development money.
Right.
And that's pretty big when you're talking about, hey, we've got tons of growth happening in the state. We've got to get access to I-15. Well, you no longer have access to that money, so you better do something about it.
So go down the block and around the block to get to I-15 when you go into somebody else's county. But, I mean, and for me, that sounds like we're mirroring the process for legislative change, whether it's ordinance change or not, that we now start to fix our legal structure to adapt to dealing with our social structure, and now we find these unique ways to help people
for sure,
and make the laws work for helping people in those communities.
And each community is different. I mean, that's kind of the factor here. I didn't want to have a prescriptive bill that says you shall do this and it shall look like this.
Right.
Because Holiday's different than Sandy. Sandy's different than West Jordan. West Jordan's different than Lehigh.
Right.
And so, I mean, I live in Lehigh. I'm in northern Utah County.
I was going to ask you, how did you was born in Sandy and you moved to Lehigh. I said, I got to talk to him. He needs some therapy. You know what I mean?
Well, why did we move down there? It's because 25 years ago, that was the affordable housing.
Right.
It's not anymore.
Not anymore.
I mean, I added 25,000 constituents to my Senate district last year.
Woo!
I'm going to add more than that this year.
Do I hear governor in the house?
No. That's just growth, right? So when we're talking about that type of growth, one of the biggest issues I'm facing down in Lehigh is we've got these Silicon Valley people who are relocating because of Silicon Slopes.
Absolutely.
And they're not taking a pay cut. So they're coming here and they moved to Utah County and they're at 385% of county average wage.
Right.
And so they just sold their sixth of an acre in the Bay Area for $2.5 million. They're looking at a half acre of undeveloped land in Lehigh for $500,000. And they're like, done, sold. I'm all over that.
And plus, we've got this population that is incredible. Young people growing every day.
Oh, for sure.
It gives them everything they need to have. It's very interesting that our population 20 years ago was young babies, young people, and all of a sudden now we've got a cross-pollination of young, old, and aged, whatever.
Oh, it's all over
all
the board.
living in the same place, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. But it also creates a unique set of challenges with our transportation, with our job location, and with the affordable housing. Right. 70% of our growth across the state, we're projected actually to double our population by 2055.
Right.
So in the next 30 plus years, we're going to be 6+ million people. But 70% of that is projected to come from home growth. We like to have our babies. But 30% of that's going to be transplants, people moving here. And with exactly what you were saying before we started the broadcast here was we've got the baby boomers who are all coming into that retirement with a lot of disposable income. Problem is not everybody has the wherewithal to be able to afford the housing. And senior issues for affordable housing are one of the biggest issues we're trying to face and tackle this year.
Housing, top priority. Wellness, another priority.
Sure.
Prescription drugs are over the top of the roof.
Oh, for sure.
We've got to fix those kinds of things. As you see this new age of, if you fix housing, you want people to be well in the housing. Mm-hmm. So how are you viewing all of these other aspects, and how do they dovetail into this? Because if we start getting people to understand that aging is not a problem, it's an issue.
Yeah.
An issue can be resolved. A problem, you got to tackle it with both feet, and we'll do that as well.
For sure.
But how do you look at all of this big visual of things that's affecting this one population that is becoming a very powerful is not the right word, but a growing population?
It's a growing population, and with numbers comes power.
Right.
It just does. When you're talking about a large number of people experiencing the same issues.
Right.
So I actually have a bill that I'm running this year. I'm working with the insurance companies, I'm working with the hospitals, I'm working with the medical association that's talking about what I like to term as in-office adjudication of your costs. Meaning, so if you're a clinic, now this can't apply to emergency room triage, okay? That you can't be haggling over cost when they're trying to make sure you don't die, right? But when you're talking about an in-office visit, when you're talking about, figuring out what prescriptions you need and the doctors are making their diagnoses, I went to the Medical Association meeting they had about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And there's all these about 90 doctors in the room, and I said, how many of you, I said, here's an example. My daughter, she and I went, and she got strep throat, so she got the penicillin shot in the bum, right into her butt cheek. And she was, and I said, how many of you know how much that cost?
Right.
I said, no, seriously, just tell me what you think that costs. Not a single physician had any idea how much that was.
They just prescribed.
Now they're doing what they do, which is,
right.
Here's your issue. We're going to solve it. We're going to get you the
They know
drugs
what
you
the
need.
medicine is supposed to do.
They know what this medicine.
But they're not concerned about the cost.
So here's the problem then, right? Because we, to the public, we go in to see the doctor, and they prescribe what they're going to prescribe, and then it all goes to like this little black box in the back room, and it feels, I don't know if this is the case yet, but it feels like there's an accountant back there going, well, how many people did we see this month? Oh, we're down about 20%, so I should prescribe, we need to charge $180 for that aspirin, as opposed to the $10 or $15 it actually probably cost for their overhead to administer it. And so because there's these contracts with the insurance companies, the doctors don't actually have any idea how much it's costing, and it goes to this little black box somewhere in the back room, and then a month and a half later, you get your bill. And then about 3 weeks later, it looks like, oh, this was adjusted for your insurance.
You now had a heart attack because you looked at your bill.
And you're going, what the hell? And so when you're talking about, your prescriptions and they're going through the roof, let's say there's a generic you just didn't even think to ask about.
Right.
Well, if you have an in-office adjudication, you can go, dang, $200 for a pill? Well, the doctor could go, well, yeah, that's probably pretty stiff. You could take this. It's a generic option. Well, how much is that? Well, it's about $6 a pill. Well, I'll take that over $200 a pill. Are you kidding me?
You got it. Hey, we're going to take a break right now. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back. This is Living with Pride, Aging with Pride, and I've got the great Senator Jacob Anderegg in the house talking about, don't you have to pay that? Come along with me. I'm going to teach you how to get it for free. Ha! Nothing for free but love. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to Living with Pride, Aging with Pride, and I'm here with Senator Jacob Anderegg, who is really my kind of guy. Now, is this an endorsement? Yes, because he's the guy that's working on making a change, and I support that kind of stuff, and I want you to look out the window and understand if you want to make change in your community, talk to the people who are in a position to help you. Don't go to the table with attitude. Go to the table with fortitude, and then you can make a difference in your life and other people's lives. And life is about... My phone is ringing, ladies and gentlemen. You watch me, I'm going to answer this. That's how you answer your phone on a broadcast for all you pros out there. You know what I mean? You throw it on the floor and then you slap yourself later for even having it like that, So anyway, we're talking about... living with pride. We're talking about the big population of aging, and we're talking with a great man, Senator Jacob Anderegg, who is really doing something. Now, I know this bill is a House bill.
No, it was Senate Bill 34 from last year.
From last year. It's ongoing now.
Yes, it is going. The one aspect that we didn't get over the finish line last year was the state's funding portion of it.
Right.
That was partly due to we ran into some budgeting issues at the end of last session that kind of turned us on our head, and ultimately we didn't get the funding requests that we had. So this year we went back and we said, hey, we got to do a better job at helping my colleagues and the House and Senate leadership understand what are we getting for the money we're putting in. We requested about $24 million last year. This year we're going to ask for $31 million, and it's going to the aspects of affordable housing for vouchers, the tax credits for construction, renovation, reconstruction, so that we can preserve the existing infrastructure of housing that we've got for affordable housing, and then the Olean Walker Fund, which is helping us build new projects with gap funding. So.
we're doing this live. I'm doing everything live. That's the next guest that's trying to come in. So if you'd go get her and bring her up, that would be cool. This is how you do live broadcasting, podcasting. You do everything goes. You know what I mean? So we're getting all of this stuff lined up. What do you see as your biggest issue and effort in making these transitions?
Well, the biggest issue is education, helping people understand what the affordable housing issues are in the state. You know, the Cam C. Gardner Policy Institute did this study. Jim Wood's group did a study last year that showed just how many, you know, where we're growing as far as the demand for housing versus what was actually built.
Right.
And we're finding ourselves at 50% of our area median income. We're 44,000 units short statewide.
So with all of this construction going on, I mean, just in downtown Salt Lake City, doesn't even mirror the rest of the state.
Well, that's exactly right. And here's the problem, though, too. Like 30 years ago, we would build affordable housing and be owned locally, right? Well, what's happened now over the last 10, 20 years is you got all these really big real estate investment trusts, foreign investors that are coming in. They're buying up that apartment complex. They're usually buying these old ones, renovating them, because they know they can buy it. They're currently at rents of $700-800, which is somewhat affordable. That's about 60% of your area median income could probably afford.
Because we're talking about if you're spending over 30% of your income, you've got a problem.
It's unaffordable. So it's not only about the number of units, affordable housing, but it's also about housing affordability. It's about the ability to actually to afford the homes that you're moving into. Absolutely. So here's the problem: is when you get this foreign money that's coming in and actually buying up these apartment complexes, renovating them. They renovate them. They turn around. They're like two-bedroom apartments that they're now going to rent out for $1,400, $1,500 a month.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
The cost of living is rising. The cost of housing is rising. We're trying to make an adaptation for seniors to have a way with their lives.
Yes.
Prescription drugs are becoming unaffordable. I mean, I had an illness and they prescribed a drug for me that cost $4,000.
Yep.
And I'm going, I could buy a car for $4,000.
Yeah.
You know, it's a sad situation. What do you need with you and your efforts to make a difference and to have an impact and to get other minds that are up on the hill with you to make a change?
Well, let's talk about political, just for a second, about the political reality in Utah.
Okay.
A lot of the progressive thinking-minded legislators are Democrats. The problem is the Democrats are a super minority in the state, so they're not going to get anything done.
Right.
You needed, in order for this to really be attacked, you needed a conservative Republican who's going to stand up and actually do this. Now, I'm in Utah County, and so I'm very interested in affordable housing because from the standpoint that I've added so many people to my Senate district and I'm adding so many more, affordable housing is one of my single biggest issues now.
Right.
But if it wasn't going to be a Republican standing up to push this thing through, it's not going to get nearly the traction that we needed. So, to that end, it's about me basically gently taking my conservative colleagues by the hand, leading them along, helping them understand this is the issue that's not going away, it's growing.
Right.
And do I believe the government can solve this entire issue? No, it's not going to solve the entire issue.
So we've got to get the private sector.
Private sector has to come to the table.
You've got to get to the table.
Yes.
I mean, my next conversation is going to be with Salt Lake County, and we're going to talk a little bit about homelessness and those kinds of things. And
absolutely.
They've got some incredible program. But it's all of that grassroots that comes together. I'm starting to think that maybe we're getting sensible, at least you are, with the idea that it's not about being a Republican, it's about being a human being.
For sure.
How do we resolve the problem politically, because we've been elected into office to make a transition for people who we're in office to serve?
I think a large part of it, though, is that each of our Senate districts and our House districts are relatively unique.
Right.
We have a lot of commonality, to be sure.
Right.
But my area is the youngest area in the entire nation. I have more constituents ages 8 and younger than anywhere else in the U.S. That's a fact.
You're going to be president.
No, but my point is, So
we've gone past governor to president.
So the problem is if it may be completely off the radar for some of my Republican colleagues because it's just not what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
They got to think like that.
That's the point, though. I'd say 99% of what I do as an elected official is educate. I am educating my colleagues. I am educating my constituents. I am educating everybody in every town hall meeting I ever go to.
Educate to stimulate the economic rise.
Well, you know what Thomas Jefferson said. The fastest way for us to lose our democratic republic is through an ill-informed electorate. So I have got to spend my time helping them understand what's happening.
Wow. Hey, you hear that out there? Click on your screen. Go yes. I want you to support Senator Jacob Anderegg in his efforts to make a difference. And you can do that by contacting your representative and saying, have you heard about that guy that's trying to make a difference in our lives, mine, yours, and theirs? That's a good thing. Hey, I appreciate you being a guest on this show. Please, will you come back again?
Yes, sir, Mr. Brown. I appreciate you.
I love you, my
brother. Give me the opportunity.
I love you, my brother.
Love you too. Thank you.
Hey, next coming up, we got Kelly in the house. Kelly in the house. Kelly in the house. And she's going to rip me apart because she's going to tell me I got a singer, I got an artist, I got seniors that are aging in a lot of ways, and she's got a lot of water. I'm talking about this. Salt Lake County is coming up next. Stay tuned. Until next time, I'm James Brown, and this was the great Senator Jacob Anderegg, who tells us this is your house, this is your road, this is your money. Welcome to America. Bye-bye.